means it's another week of high school football in North Georgia. Hello, everyone. Welcome into the North Georgia Sports Report podcast. Will Cooper here with my co-host, longtime broadcast partner. You know him, you love him. He needs no introduction, and if you've missed any of the introductions, there's about 10 weeks worth shouting his exploits and his many achievements. It is Art Mosley. Art, how you doing, my friend?
Coop, I'm doing good. If I was any better, my name would be Will Cooper, because the energy you bring, the passion you bring, the passion I feel like you're going to bring in this podcast should be outstanding. And if folks don't know who Will Cooper is, I tell you what, I don't know if anybody enjoys digging into Cherokee County football more than Will, and even that's kind of going statewide with his proposal that I think he should send to the GHSA. I know they didn't solicit any proposals, but certainly has a better one. And if you didn't get a chance to check that out last week on our podcast, go ahead and listen. Visit the website, and the article's up there. And Coop, to answer your question, I'm doing great. I hope you're doing great. It's Thanksgiving week. Hopefully for everyone, a short work week. Hopefully we can all find something to be thankful for. I'm thankful that the Sequoyah Chiefs and Coach Teter and his team were able to be victorious, because that means we're back for another week. And for the second year in a row, we have a Thanksgiving week podcast to talk about a county team that's playing on Friday night.
Absolutely, partner. You know, this is something that's been very rare over my career in doing this. I remember doing it in 2018 and being spoiled and thinking this is the way it was supposed to be, and then in 2020 as well. But here we sit once again on the precipice of another Black Friday football game. A lot of excitement around this one. You know, Art, when you look at the proponents of the game and you kind of take a look at the predictors, not mine, but everyone else's, it tends to be that Roswell is favored, but not by much. This is really one of the closer games. You're kind of looking at that, and Carrollton versus Grayson is the two that are the closest in terms of paper, you know, and kind of deciding who would be the favorite. So I think it's going to be a dandy of a game. Really glad that it's at Sequoyah. And, you know, we're going to be paying a lot of attention to the top side of that bracket as well, regardless of who wins, because, you know, one way or the other, the winner of Roswell and Sequoyah is going to have to go on the road.
Absolutely. They will have to travel to what we believe will be Thomas County Central. Could be Woodward Academy down in College Park near the airport. But this one, you know, has all of our attention this week, certainly because of our coverage area. A lot of interesting, and we'll get to our bracket breakdown here as the man versus the machine. The machine absolutely destroyed the man this week, as a Cooper predictor is absolutely kicking my butt in brackets this playoff season in our bracket challenge. So I am going to have to cede, I think, almost already to the Cooper predictor as Coop in class 5A. I believe you still, all of your Final Four teams are still around.
Yeah, the Elite Eight was perfect. I picked every single game correctly. So, you know, as we move in, you know, to the next few weeks, again, you know, this is kind of where the rubber meets the road. So it's not time to phone it in yet, because as in our scoring, how this works is the points are doubled each week. So what that means is round one, we tied at 368 points. Each win was worth 4 points. This week it was worth 8. I believe I'm up by 24 points. So only 3 games. But coming up this week, it's going up again, partner. So you have plenty of time to make it up. And you know, my 6A bracket's certainly the weakest of the bunch. And you in 3A, my friend, have been on fire. So there's plenty of room for you to make it up. So I'm not counting any of my chickens before they hatch. But I will say that very proud of my bracket's performance in 5A and in single A in both brackets. And I told you this to start this competition. I said, I'll be interested to see if my bracket does well in higher classifications or lower. The answer is a little bit of both, which anyone who statistically is looking at that means absolutely nothing. So it didn't help me at all, but it is an interesting note worth noting as we keep track of it throughout the rest of the year.
Absolutely. Coop, just to prep our fans for our show today, certainly we're going to talk about the playoffs. We've got a couple of special guests we plan to bring on. We hope that we can get Coach Teter here in a few minutes. We'll talk about that matchup. And then special guest Dave Garner is going to join us, or has agreed to join us. And I think we'll talk a little bit of playoffs. We'll talk about where WLJA, of course, Dave, the sports director at WPGY, the Sports Pig, and also the voice of WLJA on Friday nights. We'll talk about where LJA is going to be, and also Coop, I want to bring Dave in to talk about this kerfluffle as well. I was trying to think of, but of this situation between Gainesville and Brunswick and the GHSA's ruling, which as we record here on Monday night has come out, and man, I tell you what, a lot to talk about. So I'm interested, and I'm looking forward to diving into that with both Dave and you, and of course myself on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Super excited to have Dave back on. Been a while since we've had him. And of course, this is the James Teter Show. We just frame it as the North Georgia Sports Report. But excited to have both those gentlemen back on. So, Art, if you're ready, man, Sequoyah took on Newnan last week. I know you got a chance to watch the game. I watched the game. A lot of thoughts on this one. So I'll defer to you, partner. What's your initial takeaway from their win over Newnan?
Well, I tell you what, I thought it's what I learned from Sequoyah by watching that game is to see their resolve. They started the game off with an interception on it might have been the second play of the game, or first play, second play of the ball game, and Brooks Darling just jumps a route. Looks like he had been doing his homework in film study. Jumps a route, picks the ball off. Sequoyah goes in and scores, but Newnan didn't go away, and Sequoyah. Those two teams battled back. Sequoyah was up 28-21, I believe, at halftime, if I'm not mistaken, or I'm sorry, 28-14 at halftime.
Yep.
Newnan, Sequoyah comes out, and I thought, okay, here's this drive we're waiting for. It's a 6-minute drive to start that second half. They don't get any points. Newnan responds, but they don't score until about a minute left, or just under a minute left in the third quarter, or maybe even early in the fourth quarter before they get on the board. So a full 12 minutes and opportunities are wasted on just two. I say wasted, or chewed up. And that's not necessarily wasted, on two drives, one from Sequoyah, one from Newnan. And I just thought that the Chiefs did a fantastic job of responding to Noonan's touchdown, and then really putting the game away late in the fourth quarter. Another pick late in the ball game to really seal it. I know Newnan scored a touchdown late, but it was just window dressing at that point. And Sequoyah goes on to win 48-28. And that's my thought. Again, I go back to their resolve to an opponent that wasn't going away, and they'll certainly need some more of that resolve this week in this week's opponent as the Roswell Hornets come calling. But Coop, those are my thoughts. What are your thoughts and takeaways from that ball game?
Yeah, I thought they got off to a fast start finally. It kind of seems like to me that throughout Creekview game, last week against Coffee, or 2 weeks ago against Coffee, it wasn't that they didn't get off to a fast start, but there was like windows in there where things could happen that didn't need to happen. And I think that this was the first game that I've seen Sequoyah play since before the River Ridge loss, probably, where the door was just shut the entire way. When they picked off Newnan, scored real quick, Newnan responds back, so it's 7-7. But then Sequoyah to end the first, going into the second, they take like 8 minutes, just kind of going down the field, just taking their time, doing what they want to do. It felt like from then on, Newnan had their legs cut out from under them. And it was just kind of Sequoyah playing keep away and just doing what they wanted to do. And I feel like that's very reminiscent of what we saw them do against against Cherokee, earlier in the year. So hopefully it's getting hot at the right time, because I feel like the game plan that they wanted to do, they finally implemented to the fullest extent. Super clean game. Colby Martin went 18-21. I mean, incredible efficiency. Will Rzecki over 150 yards. Ho hum. What else do you expect? You mentioned defensively, Asa Goings and Brooks Darling both with interceptions to really solidify that as well. I just think overall this was the playmakers came out to do what they needed to do. It was a signature 2025 Sequoyah Chiefs win, and I hope that it carries over into this week and they continue to get that positive momentum that we saw earlier in the year.
Absolutely. A great win for Sequoyah, reaching the Elite Eight for the second consecutive season. Coop, we'll take a look at this game here momentarily. But before we do, we've recapped it. I kind of want to get Coach Teter in here if we can, to go ahead and get his perspective on what's going on. Then we'll talk about it, chop it up a little bit, and go from there. So if you will, we do have Coach Teter calling in right now. Let's go ahead and join him on his show, as it is has become the James Teter Show.
And joining us now on the North Georgia Sports Report podcast, the head coach for the Sequoyah Chiefs, Coach James Teter. Coach, thank you for being back with us.
Thanks for having me once again. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely, coach. We always look forward to it, especially this time of year. Means wins are still stacking up. Another convincing win this week, a good one against Newnan. From my perspective in watching the game, I felt like that drive that you guys had between really the end of the first quarter into the second quarter was really just a signature Sequoyah drive that you guys have had. And from then on, Newnan never really seemed like they got their footing or were able to catch back up. But from your perspective, did you feel that same way? How did you kind of see the flow of the game go as you got through it on Friday night?
No, we kind of felt the same thing. We just felt that if we could find a way to get up by one or two scores, that we could kind of control things a little better. I thought Brent did some good job of making some adjustments. Their quarterback's really good. I mean, he can throw the ball really, really well. Offensively, they're really talented. Defensively, we thought there were some things we could take advantage of with our offense and be able to do some things to them. But yeah, the same what you all saw. We felt like if we could get up one, two scores, then we could kind of control the rest of it.
Coach, speaking of those drives, had a chance to watch this game as well, at least the replay, and I noticed two things that really stood out to me. One, a couple of big interceptions. One on the first drive of the game, and then one later in the ball game. But as I was watching that game unfold, that first drive in the second half, even though you guys didn't score any points, the 6 or so minutes you took off, and then your defense, when Newnan did finally score, it was the first drive in the fourth quarter, so a scoreless third quarter. You already talked about Brent. We won't give him too much credit right now because I want him to feel hungry for this week. But Coach, what was the importance? What was the message at halftime when you came out and then looked like you guys kind of did what you wanted, at least in essence, of flipping a field and making Newnan travel in their first drive of the third quarter?
Offensively, it was just continue to do the same thing we've been doing. Don't turn the ball over, just keep eating up the clock. We talked a lot about that today at practice with their first drive. We thought that kind of hurt them because it took them forever to score, so it ate up time on them. And then for us to be able to, once they scored, to answer, because that was what, once we got up, we just felt like all we had to do, if they scored, we just had to answer. As long as we answered, we'd stay where we were at. So Brent's message was just continue to do what they were doing and tighten up a little bit. Their first two touchdowns came on a fourth down play that Brooks kind of let the guy get inside of him. And then the other one was the long throw that set him up. And it was, I think, a third down and long also. So they hadn't really done anything other than big plays to hurt us. So we just felt if we could calm down on defense and just keep them in front of us and take our time on offense, that we could control the game on.
Coach, with Colby Martin, I believe I'm doing this from memory, but I believe he went 18 of 21, just under 200 yards in the game. That kind of efficiency is almost like an extension of that running game when you can chew up clock, knowing he's completing nearly 90% of his passes. Is that something that we've seen? We've seen Colby do it for 2, 3, 4 years since he started as a freshman way back. But that growth, is that something that you have noticed with him? Is not just the growth in running the offense, but also the efficiency in the passing game and that relationship with the receivers to limit those incompletions?
Yeah, I think so. I think Colby's finally getting comfortable this year. He's was gone a lot with baseball this summer, which is good for him, and it's really paid off for him as far as being able to go to Georgia Tech. But it's taken him a while to kind of get back into the flow of just being comfortable, I think, with everybody. And so I thought that being able to be so comfortable in our offense and what he does, and being able to grow up in this and be able to help us develop what we do offensively, I think it just helps him be more relaxed and be able to trust his guys a lot more. I mean, now though, Jack made an incredible catch on one sideline, and then the one catch Brooks made, which is outstanding. So they helped him out too. But yeah, he's just, I think, now in a situation where he's just really, really comfortable with everything that's going on around him.
Coach, I want to change gears just a little bit, and I'm playing fortune teller. We know how great this season's been. We'll talk about your opponent next week. I want to jump back into a discussion that I've been part of in certain other circles, and talk about scheduling for next year. And the question really is, has it been difficult to find out how this new PSR rating is working, and to really fill that schedule next year? Now that you've got Kell and Rome in your region, which will certainly be a difficult matchup, or at least we think will add to your strength of schedule. How difficult has it been, and are you finding where you have to have a home and home type matchup when you're scheduling for next season, or are you guys just taking this one season at a time?
No, we try to. We've already had our region meetings, so we kind of know where we're at as far as home and away. We try to keep it 5 home, 5 away if at all possible. We're struggling with one opponent right now who's a non-region, trying to work out the home and away just so we can get it to work out. But when Rome and Kel came in, that's going to help us. I'm still trying to learn all this stuff too, the point wise and how it affects us and everything. Um, our situation, just because we've been successful the last 3 or 4 years, we're struggling to get people to want to play. I mean, we're going to right now open up with Denmark, play Lambert second. We're just trying to fill that third slot. Right now we're tentative about Etowah. But you're constantly looking at, all right, how good is the opponent you're going to play? You're going to be the upcoming season, how well you think their record will be, so you can get the points. So it does make it more difficult than it was in the past. And then just trying to manage your way through the regional will be tough enough with Rome and Kel both in there.
Yeah, and Coach, kind of shifting back to this season, for the last 2 weeks, I've asked you for a comparison. We compared the first round to Creekview, hit the score right on the head. Last week, we talked about Newnan being matched up with Woodward. Is a little further off, but we were still in the neighborhood. So this week, facing Roswell, obviously, I think people in our area know very much and how good they have been for so long, but also how much they have really dominated Cherokee County in the playoffs when they faced them. Could you give us a comparison to somebody you've played this season, last season, that Roswell kind of reminds you of, and any keys to be successful in this game on Friday?
Athlete-wise, I'd say they kind of compare to Gainesville over a year ago, maybe Woodward. Quarterback-wise, they compare to Sprayberry's quarterback. I think this quarterback runs the ball really, really well. He kind of is their main guy on offense. He's got enough athletes around him that keeps it scary. But athlete-wise, offensively, defensively, they remind me a lot of Gainesville from a year ago. And it's kind of what we talked to our kids about today. And I'm probably, as last year, they'll be favored. But just like last year, we showed that we can play with those people if we come out and play the way we're supposed to.
Coach, kind of continuing to focus on your opponent this week. The Hornets, certainly a top 2, 3, 4 team, depending on who you ask in the state, and that's no disrespect certainly to the Chiefs, who have had a phenomenal year. Roswell's only lost to Buford in kind of a blowout win, a blowout loss, 65-21. A team that's averaging over 40 points a game and only giving up about 3 touchdowns a game. You talked about Trey Smith, Roswell's quarterback, who has thrown for over like 20, almost 2,500 yards, rushed for over 1,000. They've got another 1,000-yard rusher. I said I wasn't going to pick on Coach Buddy, but what does your defense really need to do? And then how good is this Roswell defense, who we have not seen this season?
Oh, the defensive, they're really talented. I mean, they've got a middle linebacker that's really, really good. They've got a secondary that's got a lot of talented people in it. But from their offensive standpoint, Brent's got to do just a good job of making him kind of do what he did to Newnan. They have long, sustaining drives. Don't let them get the big play. For us, as long as we can get this thing in the fourth quarter and it's close, I think we'll win. But we cannot let them get explosive plays and score quickly on us. We've got to be able to kind of control the clock, even from a defensive standpoint, make those long drives. If he can keep them in front of him, not let him get the big play, then I think it just helps our chances have a chance to win.
Well, Coach, it ought to be an exciting matchup. I know once you get to the Elite Eight, nobody's there by accident. And certainly you guys have had a phenomenal season. I'm excited that WLJA will be there on Friday night to broadcast the game. So I'm looking forward to seeing the Chiefs again this season. And, Coach, I just want to let you know you guys haven't lost when I've been there. So I'm not saying I'm a good luck charm.
Here we go.
But it certainly is an opportunity for history. And watching that game, the replay of that game, seems like your crowd was loud and proud. The Thanksgiving week, does that change anything for you, or is it just you've been here enough to understand what this week means and what your team understands what this week means in preparation?
I don't think it changed anything. I think our kids really understand from being here from the past. The schedule changes a little bit just because you're going in the mornings more so than the evenings. And then Thursday is a little bit of a different day. We'll go early in the morning, let them get out of there so they can go visit their families and all that stuff they need to do. And then Friday, we try to make Friday as much of a normal day. We'll have them up there at 8 o'clock, kind of going through our workout and everything we normally do in our first period class, and then let them go home and come back at 3. And once you're at 3 o'clock, it's normal routine is everything. But I think our kids know what it is. I think they understand it. I think they're scared of any of it? No, because they've been here and they've done it before, and I think they're ready to play. And I just think they really want to get to the game.
Well, there you have it. Coach Teter, we certainly appreciate being guests on the James Teter Show at this point of the season. So thank you so much for allowing us to come on your show. And we look forward to talking to you next week, Coach, for the semifinal matchup. How about that?
We need about 2 more episodes.
I love it. I love it. We're down if you're down.
I'm in.
All right, Coach, best of luck on Friday night, and hopefully we'll get a chance to speak to you pregame. But go get them.
Thank you so much. I appreciate everything.
So again, thank you to Coach Teter for letting me be a part of his program here on the North Georgia Sports Report podcast. Very generous of him to allow us to intrude on his time. But in all seriousness, we appreciate him taking the time to be with us. And I think one thing I really like about Coach Teter is that sometimes when we interview coaches, we can kind of tell how they're feeling about the game. Like you can kind of pick up if they think they're going to win or not. But if Coach Teter, if any time we've interviewed him this year, if he doesn't think that he's going to win, you would never know, because he's been level-headed and very consistent with his messaging and how he answers. So we appreciate that about him. And we'll get into our predictions here in just a second, but I don't think it's far off for him to think that this is a very winnable football game for the Chiefs at home.
Absolutely is, but they'll have to play mistake-free football, Coop. I think you turn on the film, you look at Roswell and Trey Smith. It kind of starts and ends with him. Over 2,000 yards passing, over 1,000 yards rushing. He's a true dual threat quarterback. I think Coach Teter mentioned he kind of reminds them, if you're talking about a team, maybe a Jaden Duckett type quarterback. And then even a Gainesville type football team that they knocked off last season. I think this is, in my opinion, this is the toughest matchup that Sequoyah has faced all season, and it's a Roswell team that's been battle tested. A couple of close games, the Walton game, a 30-28 victory, a victory over Milton in the last game of the season on a field goal, and certainly that Gainesville victory, your favorite football team in the state of Georgia, Coop, moving Roswell undefeated in their region, another region title. And I just think it's, this, and again, we're talking about a Roswell football team, Coop, that has a first year, if I'm not mistaken, first year head coach. Their head coach came up from Lee County, was their former offensive coordinator in Jonathan Thompson. And he's done nothing short of turn Roswell into an 11-1 team. Their only loss, it was a big one, but it was to one of the, maybe prohibitive favorites in Class 6A, Buford, early in the season. And I tell you what, this is just I look at this as the toughest, most explosive opponent, averaging well over 400 yards a game on offense, 218 through the air, 247 on the ground. So you're getting closer to that 500 yards per game mark. You do have to question some of the competition. Okay. The Johns Creeks, the Chattahoochees, the Laniers, and the Seconders, but also they're getting it done, against the Waltons and the Gainesvilles and the Miltons. And so, and even in the playoffs, they've given up 13 points in 2 playoff games. They've outscored their opponents 101-13. So this is certainly a very dangerous, capable opponent in Roswell who Coop, at the end of the season, I had them ranked as number 3. I had to go back and double check that, but I have them ranked as the number 3 team in the GHSA in my rankings, in the TFR, Turf Ferguson Report rankings. So I think this is one of the top teams. I still believe that Hughes and Thomas County Central are head and shoulders above everybody else in the playoffs. But I think this Roswell team it's going to take a Herculean effort by Sequoyah, not It's not, I wouldn't call it David and Goliath, but I think that Sequoyah is going to have to play mistake-free football. If they can find a way to get ahead, this is a team we've seen. They can run away and hide. They have the offense to run away and hide from you. And I think they've done it in other ways. I think Sequoyah can get into a shootout with Roswell. I think we've seen it in some years where we didn't think Sequoyah could get behind and then come back. You made a point that Sequoyah did start fast. I think that's going to have to be a key coming into this week, is them starting fast and not falling 2 or 3 scores behind. Like I said, I think they can play catch up. I think they prefer to jump out and then run away and hide.
See, I think I almost have maybe my view is cautiously optimistic, or maybe even boldly optimistic. I don't see this as the pressures on Sequoyah. I see this as 2 evenly matched teams going at it. I don't think Sequoyah has to play mistake free. I think they can afford a few, not too many. I mean, you have to be within the realm of possibility. I mean, again, when you're doing the math, a turnover margin, every turnover is worth 3.5 points. Here's what I think. I think this is a game that plays into Sequoia's style a little bit better. Coach Teter said that he kind of reminds him of Gainesville last year, Woodward Academy last year a little bit, and also Sprayberry this year. Okay, well, those are 3 games that Sequoyah won. So, and I think the other thing is Sequoyah dominated Sprayberry while they had a 5-star corner, while they had a 4-star safety, while like it wasn't like they were out talented. Well, I think Roswell's the same way. Their talent is on display, but it doesn't mean that Sequoyah can't compete with them and that type of talent. I think the challenge is for Roswell because you don't really play a lot of teams that are going to play keep away from you very often, certainly not in their region. They didn't play Milton, who plays keep away. They didn't play Gainesville, who does the opposite of play keep away. Hughes doesn't play keep away. Buford doesn't play keep away. I just think that so many of the teams that they faced, probably not really the same style. So that's point number 1. And I also think point number 2 is that Roswell, having a first-year head coach, has worked out well for them, obviously. But I do wonder what that continuity goes through in a week like this, when you are in a Thanksgiving week that's off of your normal schedule, with a new head coach. How much does it actually change? Because Roswell's not unfamiliar with Elite 8 appearances. I'm fully aware of that. But I do wonder how much that changes things. So I guess all in all, Cooper predictor in this one, neutral field, it would pick Sequoyah by 1. Sequoyah gets the home bump, so they get 3 points. And this one is the Cooper predictor likes the Chiefs by 3.
All right, Coop, and I'm going in the exact opposite direction. There is a 6-point differential between us. I'm going Roswell by 3. I know you mentioned the first-year head coach, Coach Jonathan Thompson, but he certainly has had a chance to learn under one of the best down there at Lee County and under Coach Fabrizio. So I think it's for him that we know that program has been there, done that, and got the T-shirt. So I do think maybe the edge to Coach Teter because he was the leader, and I think it's one thing when you're the OC calling plays, but when everything falls under your headship, it certainly does. I think Coach Teter does have the edge there. I just think Trey Smith a little too much, and I'm going to call it 2 of the best place kickers in the GHSA in Class 5A, and Leif Hansen and Ballant Vorasmarty for Roswell. The game might come down to one of those 2 young men, and I think both of us were with this 3-point edge. I think it's Vorasmarty who gets the game winner and sends Roswell on to the Final Four.
And I'm crossing over the enemy territory here. I'm asking, and we talked about this off air, so I know you've already agreed to it, so you can't back out now that we're recording. But you're going to give me Sequoyah plus 3.5.
I am.
Travis Scott meal on it. It's been agreed upon. I'll take it all day. So
Sequoyah fans, if I'm betting against you, you have a pretty good chance of winning. And I'm putting a Travis Scott meal, which no longer exists. Then the hypothetical Travis Scott meal, that you have good chances here. So I like Roswell, and I'll give you the 3.5. You can have Sequoyah and 3.5 points. I'm looking forward to being out there on Friday night, on Black Friday. The weather will be a little bit cooler. We understand that this unusually unseasonal warm weather that we've been having in North Georgia and kind of flip-flopping looks like it's finally going to get back to at or below normal. So a little bit chilly, and we're fortunate that we'll be in the box on Friday night, along with and I don't want to give away too much, but I think I already mentioned it with Coach Teter that we'll be there. Myself, Dave Garner, who we have upcoming, and Jess Walker. Looking forward to working with that group, and we'll see. We'll see if I go down the hatch another Travis Scott burger and Coop. When I have to write my last will and testament, you will certainly be in there for however many Travis Scott meals plus inflation whenever that happens. So you might be getting yourself a pretty little payout here from my estate.
Well, I mean, we started this back in 2020, and we have continually racked up. And I will have people know I'm 9-0 on Travis Scott meal bets. I have never lost a Travis Scott meal, so I'm selective with it. I mean, 9-0 over 5 years, not very much, but when it's solid, it's solid.
Yes, you see a good deal. When you can spot a good deal when you see it. And if memory serves me correctly, that was the Amir Morrison against Chattahoochee game when I was there to witness River Ridge beat up Chattahoochee and realized that Coop might know a thing or two about high school football.
That is correct. I remember it well.
Well, Coop, let's. I tell you what, we're kind of filling a couple of seconds. I think we do finally have Dave Garner on, and I would love to bring him in just to get, like I said, to get his take on the playoffs, to get his take on the Sequoyah Roswell matchup. Certainly that the LJA will be there, and then to get his take on the brawl in Brunswick.
And joining us now on the North Georgia Sports Report podcast, the voice and the sports director at 101.1 FM, The Pulse, as well as 98.7 The Sports Pig, based out of Jasper. It is Dave Garner, our good friend, longtime broadcast partner. Dave, you're looking good, man. Thanks for joining us.
Well, hey, man, I appreciate it. That's the nicest thing you've ever said to me. So
I appreciate
that, partner.
Yeah,
usually there's always something right off the bat that's, very degrading, or whatever. So, I mean, the fact that you actually said something nice was kind of a nice welcome change.
Well, Dave, you try to be self-deprecating. And for those who don't watch the YouTube video, you've got Plus Size Broadcaster as your screen name today.
I wonder who assigned that. I wonder who wrote that on the screen.
I just assume that you.
Art, you sold him out because that doesn't show up on the stream. That's for me on the back end. No pun intended. Trying to.
Your part. He just sold you out, Coop. He just sold you out, man.
Look, I can't even have my own inside jokes.
Hey, look, it's either here on the podcast or live on the broadcast on Friday night. You're going to get a Dave Garner fat joke. And I'm sorry for those who are like fat phobic or whatever. We're picking on our friend and we don't care. And truth be told, Dave is really just sporting a dad bod, and Coop is not a dad. So he doesn't understand the physique of a dad bod. So Dave, I'm going to give you your props where they're due, man.
Yeah, I mean the dad bod's the thing right now. It's in. So
allegedly. Let's talk some high school football here. Enough about that.
Please, let's do. Yeah.
Dave, we talked to Coach Teter a little bit earlier tonight and bringing you on. We know that WLJA 101.1, The Pulse. Nobody, and as you say, nobody does high school football in Georgia like The Pulse, and we'll be there at Sequoyah Roswell, top 10 matchup. We'll want to go ahead and jump in and get your take on this football game, Dave.
Yeah, I mean, I know you guys talked to Coach just a second ago, and I know y'all have kind of shared your thoughts. I really feel like, Sequoyah, looking at it on paper, I think Roswell's probably the favorite going into this game. But I think if Sequoyah does what they've done all year long, and that's take care of the football and win at the line of scrimmage, I mean, I think they got a shot. I know that's kind of a general take. I mean, you got to win the line of scrimmage pretty much at any level. Especially when you get into a postseason contention type situation like this. But yeah, I mean, Sequoyah is plus 13, I think, in turnover ratio this year, which is remarkable. So they've been able to take the ball away. They've got 14 interceptions, I think, or 13, something like that. And they've only turned the ball over just a handful of times themselves offensively. We all know about Will Rzadecki. The biggest thing I think that's impressed me about this Sequoyah team has been their defense. I know y'all talked to Brett Buddy a lot, and what he's done. This Sequoyah team has allowed the least amount of points through 12 games that any Sequoyah team has allowed since 2009, which I think was Coach Teter's first year with the program. So, they're having a monumental year defensively, and they're going to have their hands full. They got Trey and Dre over on Roswell, the tandem there. Of course, Trey Smith, the outstanding quarterback, who I think is second in the state in total yards with well over 3,000. And, of course, Art, we saw a guy in Hudson Hewlett for North Murray last week that was in the top 10 as well. But Trey Smith, I think, one or two in the state total yards. Then, of course, you got, Dre Cowsey, the running back, who, pretty much can do it all. And then they've got Wills Campbell, a 1,000-yard receiver. So a lot of weapons on Roswell offense for Sequoyah to contend with. So they're going to have to figure out a way to kind of stop all that, or at least slow it down. You kind of have to pick your poison when you're playing this Roswell team. Their lone loss, obviously, against Buford. They've had a couple of really close games this year, as have the Chiefs. I know Roswell's had 3 one-possession games, So, but the series history favors Sequoyah. They got a slight edge. This is the 9th meeting all time, and so we'll see what happens. But yeah, Roswell averaging 44.5 points, I think. Sequoyah allowing 14. So something's got to give Friday night. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it, man. As you mentioned, Art, you get into this time of year, quarterfinals, man, anything can happen, in the playoffs, and so it should be a lot of fun.
Dave, one of the things we won't have to, as I'll be alongside with you, along with Jess Walker and potentially Tucker Green there on Friday night. One of the things that you won't have to worry about, or we won't have to worry about, is the weather. Now, it will be chilly, but the rain, it shouldn't be an impact. And I just want to get your thoughts on the game that you saw last week. How was the weather a factor in that ball game as America's Sumter made the 4+ hour trip up and defeated North Murray?
Well, I can tell you it was definitely a factor for our broadcast team because we had some gear that went out towards the end of that game, and I think it was just simply because of all the moisture. There was never really a downpour. I mean, it was just kind of this light, annoying drizzle all night long that just kept everything wet. And unfortunately, we were up top on the press box like a lot of high school setups are, but the thing about North Murray, it's a great view, it's a great vantage point, but the press box, the top is kind of narrow, so you don't really have enough room to really set up a tent of any kind. And so we did the best we could, putting a towel over the Comrex, and of course I had an umbrella as well that I was holding, but obviously that didn't do it. There was so much moisture in the air on Friday night. But as far as the game goes, I mean, yeah, it definitely played havoc. Of course, a turf field, which is already kind of slick. We saw earlier in the year guys sliding around on it. There's this one particular spot that people seem to kind of lose their traction on it. And so, yeah, it definitely got to both teams. Saw a lot of Sumter County was the better football team, and it showed on the scoreboard. But they had a hard time getting their traction sometime offensively. A lot of the shotgun snaps were very high, and so they had to Ishmael Jones, the quarterback, had to kind of leave his feet several times to get the snap. And anytime if you're doing RPO or read type stuff, that throws off the timing of your plays when you're having to leave your feet to get the snap to come back down with it and then make a read. So kudos to North Murray for hanging in there, keeping the game tough. They just really couldn't generate any offense in this game. So Sumter County, a team that very much in that single A bracket, I think it's got a good shot, man. I was really impressed with their athleticism and the way they were able to get up and down the field, even though they missed a few shots, I think probably due to the weather.
Dave, before we jump into the probably the topic of the week in the state, I want to take a look at this 5A bracket, since this is where our podcast has really been focused on since the playoffs has started. I'm looking at my bracket now, and I'm crying in my tears because I am going to take a big fat L to the Cooper Predictor in just about every classification this year, after running my chops about how smart I was. So I'm getting another dose of humble pie here. Are there any teams in this bracket, Dave, that you're surprised to see in the quarterfinals?
Not really. I mean, to be honest with you, in the 5A bracket, no. I think that at the end of the day, I still feel like Thomas County Central is probably still the best team, but I'm not surprised to see Rome. Certainly you can look at Milton and Jackson County, and I know y'all talked a lot about that game, and you can say, well, Milton, what's wrong with them? But we all kind of knew it was a little bit different Milton team coming into the postseason. They kind of limp in a little bit to it. So not terribly surprised that Jackson County won that matchup. And then, of course, you've got the Sequoyah Roswell game, of course, that we'll have on Friday night. I think the coin flip, was the top bracket, I believe, host. So the winner of the Sequoyah Roswell game will more than likely have to go down to Thomasville to take on Thomas County Central, which is a tough draw. That's a long bus ride. Thomas County Central is right down on the state line, but even more off the beaten path. It's not right off of 75. So that's a long way to go, and then over on the I can't remember who's that other quadrant. I'm trying to think that's up there.
You got Hughes and Gainesville.
That's right, that one. Which which I know we're going to talk about that in a minute too, with everything going on there. But not really surprised to see either one of those teams in it at this point. But definitely, I think that's certainly going to be an uphill battle due to what we're probably going to talk about here in a second, based on what happened to Gainesville and everything, which is kind of a wild thing. That's obviously unfortunately. It's one of those things where negativity always wins out in the headlines. For every 1% or 5% of bad things that happen with sports, it's the 95% good that doesn't get talked about a lot of times. But anyway, to answer your question, not really a lot of surprises, to be honest with you, in 5A.
Well, I want to go ahead. I know we haven't brought in my podcast partner, Will Cooper. He's been waiting with bated breath to talk about how Gainesville got what they deserved, and how he wishes it would have happened sooner here. But Coop, I'll start with you. Yeah, I'm picking on you. You're never getting an interview with Coach Niblett after this, okay? But not like you wanted one anyway. Coop, I'm going to start with you. The GHSA hands down the ruling, 39 suspensions. Everyone that was on the field of play. So all 11 defensive players were part of that suspension. Now, I have my own opinion. I'll get to that, but I want to get to you first. Was the GHSA too harsh in your opinion?
Well, I think first of all, you have to address the example that, we're not teaching our high school football players proper fighting etiquette. I didn't see good footwork. There was no slips. Hands weren't up in a defensive position. As a former boxer, it was a little hard to watch the whole thing.
Yeah, they really lacked technique for sure. Yeah.
For sure. I was thankful, there, especially at the beginning of that fight, there's multiple angles of it. I saw the TikTok version. I saw the NFHS broadcast version. Then I think there was a field level version that I saw just a couple of times. In all seriousness, it could have been a lot worse, because when that initial contact happened and the player lost his helmet, I thought we might have a Myles Garrett situation when, helmets were involved as a weapon. So I was very thankful that it didn't.
But I just want to. You said when the helmet was ripped off by Brunswick players. I just want to make sure we have the facts right. It's not like he voluntarily. The Gainesville player did not voluntarily take his helmet off. The Brunswick player ripped it off his head violently.
Well, that's what. Yeah, right. That's what I meant. Look. Regardless of how you feel about the two teams, Brunswick is obviously in the most wrong. They started the altercation. They were the first ones off the bench. I'm not defending I will not be sitting here defending Brunswick, who cleared the benches just as much as anybody else did. I'm not going to take that standpoint. My point to that is that when you turn the coin and I think there's a comedy of errors that have gone on here. First of all, is it fair? By what regard? Because if you're reading the rule book, then yes. I believe it was the superintendent for the Gainesville City Schools. He came out and said that he hated that it was a hardline interpretation of the rule. Okay, well, whoever told him to say that, that's the most moronic statement I've ever heard in my life. All rules have a hardline interpretation, otherwise they wouldn't be written. So that was the dumbest thing that you could say. And then Niblett, for some reason, decides it's a smart idea to go on Fox 5 in an interview today. And he makes a good point to start and calling on the emotional argument and saying, well, that's, they're a family. That's our brothers out there. We're going to go defend them. And then he backs it up by saying, all these people on Twitter want to talk about how our program's been run and all this stuff. And it's like, at the same time that these statements are being made, you have the official school account arguing with fan accounts about what's being said about them. It's like such a comedy of errors from a PR standpoint. It's a nightmare. So that's all aside from the question you actually asked me, which is, did the GHSA make the proper ruling? Yeah. I mean, again, this is stuff that they go over at the beginning of the year with these coaches. This isn't something that's confusing to any of them. And that's, as a matter of fact, they knew that so early on. The official account that had been arguing with the fans tweeted and said, please don't talk about it because we already know the GHSA is going to do something to us and we don't want to hear your opinions on it. Okay, well, then you were aware that you did something wrong by the letter of the book. You were aware of that. That's not a secret to you. And that brings me to my ultimate point. The thing that frustrated me the most about the woe is me argument that I'm hearing from Gainesville, and the reason I'm not bringing up Brunswick is because they're irrelevant now anyway. I think they should be handed a postseason ban next year. I don't think they should be invited to the playoffs. But even with that, the thing that frustrates me with this is that when you look at what Gainesville had and the players that were suspended and the argument of woe is me, we shouldn't have been suspended, you agreed to the rule. You know the GHSA has their rules. This is the same people that try to game the system by jumping out of a tougher region with Roswell and Milton, and they're happy to go to the GHSA and say, hat in hand, please, sir, don't make me play these other city schools because we're not competitive against them. And they jump into a region with Jackson County and Appalachia and all these other programs that aren't city schools and don't recruit like they do. So it's like you have two sides. Pick one. You're either woe is me victim or you're the big tough guys of the county, but you can't be both. So that's where the buck really stops with me. I think at the end of the day, it was pretty irrelevant anyway. Did Gainesville really have a shot against Hughes? Probably not. I mean, how many times do we have to see Langston Hughes beat Gainesville before everybody just acknowledges this isn't a game they can win? It's like Alabama, Georgia. The Bulldogs cannot beat Alabama. So we already knew that coming into this. So that's kind of my take on it. I mean, yay for Hughes. They'll win 42-14 instead of 42-21. So good for them.
Yeah. I seem to remember Georgia beating Alabama in a national championship game. I know that's the only time that's ever happened, but it did happen at the right moment. But I will say this.
Yes, luckily with three receiver
here
injured,
we go.
Fine,
you want to be the tough guy or do you want to make excuses? you can't be both, okay? So anyway, no, I would say, I mean, to be honest with you, and I can't really disagree with any of that. I think if you're going to suspend 39 players and most of them starters, you might as well just went ahead and made Gainesville forfeit the game anyway. I mean, because now to ask them to go out there and try to actually play a football game in the quarterfinals with a bunch of, probably JV guys or whatever, it's not even going to be a competitive game. So why even play that game now at this point? I think if the GHSA was going to make that kind of ruling, they should have probably just went ahead and made them forfeit, or something, because at this point, I don't really see the point in even lining up and playing that game. It's going to be a running clock, regardless of the situation there. So, but yeah, I mean, I can't fault the GHSA. I mean, I know there's arguments, this, that, and the other, and so forth. But yeah, I think everybody knew as soon as that happened there were going to be some suspensions. I don't think anything was a surprise when it got handed down or whatever by Gainesville. And I know Brunswick, obviously, like you said, kind of irrelevant because they're not the team in it anymore. They were the one getting beat 42-0. But you got to understand, if you're Gainesville, you have a lot more to lose. You're up 42-0. You've got the game won. You've got a big quarterfinal matchup coming up the following week. I mean, you got to defend your guys. I mean, I get all that, but you also have to understand too that you put yourself in a really bad situation. And you put your fate in the hands of someone else. We always talk about as a football team, you don't ever want to be in a situation late in the season where you have to rely on other teams to win, right? You want to control your own destiny. Well, that carries over to discipline too. You got to have the discipline to be able to know that you've got, you're the team here in this situation. They're trying to bait you. They're trying to rage bait you, and in a situation like that. And so, I hate it for Gainesville. I mean, personally, because, who knows what would have happened the next round, but it is what it is. You got to pay the penalty for something like that, and you knew something was going to happen.
Well, and here's my question to the whole thing, because I think so much of it is, we have to remember, and I think we forget this sometimes because we're so used to seeing football in a college or professional level, that we forget these kids are 14, 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old kids. God knows that, I was not the mental fortitude one at 16 years old to be smart enough to say, hey, I'm not going to run out there and get my guy. The thing that I think is most telling, and it's really a emblematic problem within programs, is that there was no coach in the film on either side that tried to prevent their players from getting involved. You didn't see a single Gainesville staffer turn around and hold up a hand or try and keep people calm. You didn't see that on the Brunswick sideline either. And I think that's the problem with it, is that it's like both sides were so willing to go to war, which football is a very difficult sport to handle because it's so physical. And as a coach, you're constantly saying, we got to beat them physically, but you got to stop when the whistle sounds. And that's one of the hardest lessons that people have to learn. I mean, in the NFL, we see it all the time, late hits, unsportsmanlike conducts, because it is such a hard line to learn. But you would think that the adults in the room would be adult enough to say, hey, you guys got to stop. We'll figure it out, but somebody's got to stop. But the fact there wasn't a single coach on either side that tried to prevent it from anybody running out off the sideline, knowing the rule, like that's the thing. It wasn't shocking. Everybody knows that rule. That's the part that frustrates me the most, is that I think there has to be, as leaders of young men and as coaches, you have to be an example of calmness and integrity, and there wasn't that in this example. So I know it's a bad look. It sucks that it's 2025. There's cameras everywhere. If this happened in 2010, there wouldn't be cameras everywhere. There would be some grainy iPhone footage that nobody would ever be able to determine numbers, and we would figure it out that way. But instead, we see it in 4K, and we see that the coaches do nothing to stop it. And I think that's the most disappointing part of the whole thing.
If I can opine here, and you guys both have make salient points. And I think Will, you talked about the letter of the law, and I'm not going to dispute that. If the rule says X, then the X should be the punishment. I think there needs to be some level, and gosh, I never thought I'd see the day when I was defending the Gainesville Red Elephants, because we competed against them years ago in basketball. As a coach, and I was like, these are a bunch of spoiled city kids, man. And so it did feel good to go up there and beat them. I just want to throw that out there. But it's tough to defend Gainesville. I think there's a level of arrogance almost that, man, it's even worse than Cartersville or Dalton, at least from what we or even Valdosta, if I could say. There's just a level of arrogance that seems to come out from their program. And I say this kind of tongue-in-cheek, but perhaps they should have contacted the PR firm of Cooper, Garner, and Mosley to help them, get their message across a little more clearly, because they do come off as kind of woe is us. But I have a hard time saying that every defensive player, understanding the GHSA's ruling that every defensive player on the field is suspended. And I think one of the points is, even in one of the clips, you see the Gainesville defensive lineman helping up the Brunswick quarterback. And it's kind of like, oh, well, I didn't, and now I don't know what he did after that play. And I think the easy one is to pick out every jersey that came on the field. That's the automatic disqualification. That's just, that's the rule. The fact that those guys were on the field, if they threw a punch, if they ran in, shoved somebody, then I think that's that's where you can say, okay, well, this is the letter of the law. Will, I'm not going to argue the point about adults. I am far removed from being a 16, 17, 18-year-old kid in the neighborhood of 30 plus years. So it's tough for me to go back and think, hey, what would I have done? Would I have just stayed on the sideline? No, I probably would have run out there like any other kid and been like, yeah, you want some of us? We're going to give you the business. I agree that I think Brunswick as instigator, and that I don't want to punish every other kid in Brunswick, but there has to be a postseason ban. It's not just they can't play the first season. I agree. The other thing I think that will go unspoken, and this is me talking out of both sides of my mouth here, is I feel like the GHSA again is picking and choosing which rules they're going to enforce, and that from that perspective, I talk about recruiting. And I know the GHSA tries to monitor recruiting, but year in and year out in football and in basketball, and I'm sure it happens in baseball. Kids are jumping ship one school to another. It's up to the AD to provide the information. Who is enforcing this at the GHSA? It becomes like they're talking out of both sides of their mouth. Okay, you know what? We're spending 39 players. That'll solve it. Yes, certainly that sends a message, but also, if kids show up at certain high schools to play basketball or play basketball at 3 different high schools, and how is this being enforced? How is this possible year in and year out? So again, I had to throw that in because I think that Gainesville has been the beneficiary of some kids moving in. Not always. It hasn't always been like that. They've had some really great players. It's as much as my disdain for their arrogance. They've had some really good football players and some really good football coaches there. And I'm not taking anything away from Coach Niblett. I think he's a fantastic football coach. I just think that the GHSA blundered this one a little bit without using any kind of human thought. It's almost like they went to Chat GPT and just took Chat GPT's answer without fact checking it.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, yeah, sometimes, and you see that, NCAA level different things where sometimes you see a decision and it's almost as if they're using that situation to make an example, out of whatever. But maybe sometimes the consistency is not always there in those same decisions. So I kind of see what you're saying too. I mean, because, there are times where you feel like you can kind of pick and choose certain things, or at least you see that. I think that one of the things that probably drove this decision too is how much publicity it got, because turning on the news, the other night, I mean, yeah, that's all you're seeing, and it's making the Atlanta news. And then, so once it blows up, I think that all of a sudden the responsibility from the Georgia High School Association is, we got to do something here to make it look like we're actually doing. Had that story not gained as much traction, had it been just a normal, kind of like, all right, it's a football fight. I mean, I remember when Gilmer and Pickens, got in a brawl one year and the sideline cleared. It was very much the same thing. But I don't remember players getting suspended. I don't remember the GHSA stepping in and, suspending 39 Gilmer players and 28 Pickens, so I think that a lot of it had to do with the level of publicity that this got as well, which probably forced the hand of the GHSA to do what they did. I'm not sure that would have happened for any brawl during any time of the year, necessarily. So again, I think it's from the consistency standpoint, it'll be interesting moving forward if this kind of thing happens again. When we'll see what they do, but.
I think your point's exactly right. I think the GHSA, and when did I ever think that I would be on here defending the GHSA? But I think to Dave's point, the GHSA was put in an impossible situation because if they could find a way to benefit a city school, they would. I guarantee you they tried. They tried and they thought about it. I mean, again, these are the same guys that despite having to travel more, they looked at Gainesville and said, yeah, you can switch regions. That's fine. No logical reason. It would require less travel to be in the region that they were already in. But the GHSA, yeah, that's fine. So that's point number one. Point number two is that because of the publicity, though, is that you can't just hide your blind eye to the fact that they recruit. You can't hide that, because when Fox 5 is trying to get an interview with the head coach, trying to determine what went on, and again, it was caught in 4K. It's not like it was grainy footage where they can say, well, we didn't even know who it was, because you had people on Twitter the next day saying, here's the list of who they should suspend. Here's who I found. Like, you can do that with the footage that's there. So I think you shine a light on a cockroach, it has nowhere to run. It's going to belly up. I think that's what we saw here. And it was the GHSA saying, sorry, we can't defend you this time. It's got to happen. And I think on the backside of it, I think you're going to see Brunswick be punished super severely, because I think from the GHSA's standpoint, they're like, man, they really forced our hand with this. That's part of it. But then one thing that I think is also worth noting, and I don't want to say this is unfair or a byproduct of an example or anything like that, but Brunswick has a tight end committed to Florida. Xavier Griffin for Gainesville's committed to Alabama. Kareem Hewley's getting a ton of attention. I think he's committed to Clemson, if I remember that correctly, or he's gotten a lot of traction from Clemson. But either way, there's a lot of SEC Power 4 talent out on that field, and that adds a level to it as well, because this isn't, not to pick on Pickens and Gilmer, but it's not Pickens versus Gilmer. It's not, Chad Everyteen for Pickens, doing something wrong. I mean, we're talking about guys that are going to be NFL level talent. And I think that adds another element to it as well. So I think the GHSA was put in an impossible situation. They had to do what they wrote in the bylaws. I get that. I wouldn't be surprised if in a couple years we see something that says if you're not the aggressor and your name is associated with some kind of city instead of just a county, then you'll be fine. But since that's not the law currently, they had to go with it. So,
yeah.
Hey, and Coop, and I know you say this, and I think I know we use fair. Anytime I hear the word fair, I think fairness ended in the Garden of Eden. With that
justice
woman. But what we really want, I think, is equity across the board and consistency. And so this as you mentioned, this situation puts us in a situation where we're both defending entities that we would not normally take up. Rarely will you ever find me defend Gainesville, and like you said, rarely will ever hear you defend the GHSA. And I think ultimately it's tragic is not the right word. It's disappointing. I think it's disappointing for everyone involved, and it puts a light on high school football that doesn't need to be. The light doesn't need to be on that. You talked about the young men who are going on to play college football, and we have one of the best playoffs, I think, in the country. Maybe not the best. I think Texas might have an argument, maybe Florida, but I think Georgia high school football is per capita probably as good as just about any. And to see, to see this kind of situation happen and around, it's just it's a blemish on the sport that we love, that we would hope that won't happen or we won't see again, certainly in the near future. And Larry Prather, our good friend and former broadcast partner, once said, "There's 4 sides to every game, right? There's offense, defense, special teams, and emotion, right?" And that's, we kind of chuckle at that from time to time, but it's true. You have to be able to control your emotion and to be disciplined. And things got out of hand, and here we are.
Yep. Well said.
Well said.
Yep.
So. Dave, I don't know if we have you for much longer, man, but I do want to let you know I'm looking forward to being in the broadcast booth with you. It's been so long since you and I have been there. I don't know if Mr. Voida, the athletic director, has widened the door to get both of our big heads into that broadcast booth. And I do feel sorry for Jess because there's not going to be a whole lot of oxygen in that small booth over there.
I was going to say, yeah, we're going to take the oxygen out of the room, but it'll be a lot of fun, man. I'm looking forward to it. Like I said, I'm just the biggest factor for me was to try to be indoors, and we had a couple other games really that we were looking at too as potentials. But at the end of the day, hopefully, I think Coach V over there at Sequoyah was able to hook us up maybe with a spot indoors on that visiting press box side there. So hopefully that'll be the case. But supposed to dip a little chillier on Friday, so that was the deciding factor for me was trying to get us indoors somewhere.
Well, Dave, you are certainly a trooper. We appreciate you, man. We appreciate you jumping in on the podcast on short notice today. It's always good to get your perspective. And Dave, can you just let our listeners know how they can tune into the game if they're traveling for Thanksgiving on Friday night?
Yeah, so there are a lot of different ways you can listen. Obviously, we are the home, the Northwest Georgia flagship home of Georgia football. So, of course, the Georgia Tech game will kind of be right in front of us. Kick off at 3:30, and then as soon as that game goes off the air, basically our coverage will start right at 7:00, and we'll be on the air Friday night on 101.1 FM, The Pulse. And again, you can download the app. You can download the Pulse app, or you can also stream it live on our webpage as well, 1011thepulse.com. 1011. So basically 1011, thepulse.com. But yeah, we're not simulcasting this week because we got to put the 4-hour-long Georgia post-game report over on our sports channel, over on the Sports Pig. So we won't be simulcasting this week like we did last week, where we had the same game on both stations. But we'll definitely be on the big station there, the Pulse. And so I want to invite anybody in the local area to listen in, man. It'll be a fun one.
Well, Dave, as always, we thank you for your spirited debate, and certainly we miss you. And as always, as Sequoyah continues to win, you'll be invited back on the podcast.
There we go, man. I love it. Go Chiefs.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
So thank you to Dave for being with us. Excited to hear you and him back in the broadcast booth together on Friday. Again, invite everybody to check out 101.1 FM The Pulse. I have the app on my phone. Not been as avid of a listener as I would have liked to have been. I will admit that Texas high school football does make it quite difficult to listen to games. But in the hour I have before my kickoff, I normally try and catch it. But excited for you guys to be back in the booth on Black Friday. So with that being said, Art, man, anything else you want to talk about here? We got some good games coming up. Obviously, you're 3 games down in the bracket challenge, which we talked about earlier. So plenty of time for you to come back. But anything else that's on your mind here, partner?
I tell you what, I mean, I'll say this publicly, man. The things I was wrong about, number one, was Milton Jackson County. I think Dave even mentioned that. And when I'm right, I'll let you know, and when I'm wrong, I'll let you know. And I was certainly wrong about the Milton Eagles. And man, hats off to Jackson County. I was also wrong about Rome, just in that Class 5A bracket. Rome over Houston County. And certainly Milton losing knocks out what I thought would be a Final Four team. So I've got 3 or 4 left. So our scoring, we can certainly, any one of us can make up or extend a lead shortly. So it ought to be interesting. Again, at this point of the year, there, maybe Walton, if we look in Class 6A, is a big surprise. But we talked about their schedule. They lost to this Roswell team that we'll see on Friday night by 2 points. And Coach Bruner has also been there, done that. They were in the state championship I believe it was last year. So they will certainly be traveling down to Valdosta in hopes of pulling off another upset. It would be a huge upset. But Coop, just kind of looking at the bracket, I know we talked about a little bit. Grayson Carrollton might be the best game in the state this weekend. I think this could be a state title type game. And this is, with all due respect to the likes of North Gwinnett and West Forsyth and Buford and certainly Valdosta and Walton. But I really think this is the game of the playoffs. And I know this is a sore subject for both of us with the PSR. I think this is what their PSR is trying to get to. But even if Grayson and Carrollton were on opposite sides of the bracket, there's no guarantee that they would meet in the state title game. And I think we do get some games like this in the Elite Eight that maybe should be Final Four games or whatnot. But look, it's the way the cookie crumbles. And certainly over the next 2 seasons, we'll see how this PSR works out and if the GSSA will tweak anything in the 2027 season in the second year of this. And maybe they will give credence to the Cooper Rating Index, the CRI, which might leave some teams crying after they realize how simple it is to understand here. But Coop, I'm just excited for another week of high school football. Certainly grateful. I know it's Thanksgiving, and I'll kind of, every day is a day of Thanksgiving. And I think we all, no matter where we are in life, can pause and be thankful and grateful for at least one thing. And I'm grateful for you, partner. I'm grateful for certainly Dave, our good friend who joined us, and Coach Teter, all of our county coaches and our fans and our family who help support us in this endeavor. So, it's a week of reflection, at least to me, and to be thankful. I just wanted to mention that. So to Coach Devine, Coach Williams, Coach Teter, Coach Holly, Vavra. I mentioned Devine already, didn't I? How can I forget River Ridge, Coach Collins? I mean,
I'm about to say the man of the hour and drop the ball.
I tell you what, and certainly grateful for all 6 of our county coaches and and that helped make this show what it is. Because it's one thing for you and I to get on and pontificate, but it's nothing better than hearing it from the horse's mouth and how about their young men, their programs, and those communities. So we're certainly grateful for that. And again, the listeners is week in and week out who come back and engage and interact with us, whether through social media or face to face when we see you out in the public. So just again, we want to reiterate that thankfulness for you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. We wouldn't do it without you. Wouldn't be possible without you. And we really appreciate it. And we wish you all the best. Safe travels if you're headed out of town. Certainly keep, be safe. Do everything you can to be safe. And if you're staying home, be safe as well. Make sure the turkey's thawed before you drop it in the fryer. Ask me, speaking from experience here. No house fires. Everybody keep it clean. But yeah, in all seriousness, and if you're in town and it's on Friday and you're thinking, what am I going to do? We got up early to go Black Friday shopping. Well, there's a little football game going on just down the road from you at Skip Pope Stadium. Make your way out there and check out the Chiefs because, hey, what could be better than that?
Absolutely. And if you can't make it out, if it's a little bit too chilly, don't forget you can listen to Dave and I on 101.1 The Pulse. Dave gave you all the call letters. If you need to stream it, you can listen to us, 1011thepulse.com. Listen now. We'll be right on right after the good old fashioned hate game with the Bugs visiting the Dogs, and so we'll certainly keep you up to date. Maybe talk a little bit about that in our pregame, and run you right up to kickoff there at Skip Pope Stadium. But Coop, it's been a pleasure as always. I hope you all have a happy Thanksgiving. Favorite. What's one? We'll leave it at this. You and I. What's one thing on your Thanksgiving menu you cannot go without?
Stuffing, dressing, depending who you ask, whichever way you want to say it. I feel like we always called it dressing. But yeah, I can't do without it, man. It's like the one time a year you even get that. When else are you going to make that? Maybe Christmas, some people do, but I'm talking about, and especially if you can get me with some gravy on top, I quit playing. You can forget about everything else. I'll just eat that, and then it's the what's the thing in it that makes you sleepy? Starts with a T.
Tryptophan.
That's it, man. Give me that at about 3:00 in the afternoon. I'm going to eat a whole plate of the thing, sit down. I'm going to fall asleep. And then about 3-4 hours later, I'll wake back up and get whatever pie they got, whether we're talking pecan or pumpkin or whatever it is. That's an ideal for me. Also, because it makes me thirsty because of the saffron in it, I'm going to drink about a gallon of sweet tea because I don't drink a lot of sweet tea, but that's the one day of the year that sweet tea is on the menu for me, guaranteed. So a gallon of sweet tea, a pound of stuffing or dressing, whichever, going to sleep, and then waking up to whatever kind of desserts we got on the table. What about you, partner? I'm sorry, that was very in-depth, but I'm giving you the whole playbook.
I tell you, it's like you put some thought into it, and that was an off-the-cuff question here. Coop, I'm going with macaroni and cheese. I think we, at least in my house, we're not like a Kraft macaroni and cheese family. It's kind of old school. We bake it. It's like a loaf or whatever. And, as the older my kids have gotten, the better I've gotten at making mac and cheese, and the less leftovers they have. So, I can't go without macaroni and cheese. We don't need a ton of it throughout the year anymore. That's just been a staple when I was a kid, and it's continued. So, throw any meat out there, I'll eat it. I'm not a huge fan of turkey. Really not a huge fan of ham either. But if I have some macaroni and cheese, all is right in the world. And then, you talk about dessert. I consider it a family recipe. It's been passed down from my grandmother, and now both my brother and I, one of my brothers and I, make the same sour cream pound cake. And when we get it right, it is absolutely decadent. Nothing else needed, not even maybe just a glass of milk. And I'm hoping I don't screw that up this year, because that will be one of the desserts in the Mosley household. So I'll send you a picture, Will, and it
yeah.
I don't have smell-o-vision, but I'm praying I don't screw this up this year, because I have when you're young, when your parents pass down a recipe, you think, oh yeah, what dummy can't follow a recipe, and this one right here. But over the last couple of years, I found a way to I won't say perfect it, but get it close to what we used to call her grandma. And I got it close to grandma's recipe. And man, she's been gone for so many years. I would hope that if there was a chance for her to come visit, and taste that sour cream pound cake, we would have made her proud. But yeah, that's it. Macaroni and cheese, sour cream pound cake. I'm going to skip the sweet tea. I'll probably go right for the Coca-Cola, just as bad for me. There we have it.
I like it, man. I like it. Well, yeah, definitely. I've never heard of sour cream pound cake before. That's a new one for
What?
me.
Coop.
Sour cream?
Sour cream pound cake, man.
No, I've never heard of that.
Are you really Southern?
I mean, yeah, but like blueberry pound cake, vanilla pound cake, but sour cream? I've never heard of this.
Coop, I'm going to have to, next time you're in town, we're going to have to remedy that, man.
Please, I would love nothing more. I tell you what, I know when my birthday is, so I can, and I should be there by then. So, just keep that in mind.
We will definitely keep that in mind, and maybe I'll show off my culinary skills for you.
There you go.
Man of many mysteries here. But in any event, we've taken this too long, Coop. Thank you so much for being a gracious host, and again for Coach Teter and for Dave Garner, and for my good co-host and the producer, the executive director, and all of the important titles for this podcast. That is Will Cooper, who continues to make it happen week in and week out. We thank you, all of our listeners. We hope everyone has a safe and happy Thanksgiving, and we look forward to talking to you next week.